Thank you so much for having me.
So you are the founder and CEO of Command Education. Now you consult a lot of college students who want to get admission into some of the Ivy League schools in the US, and some 96% of your clients, they basically make it into their three top dream schools. How do you achieve that?
Yeah, so thanks so much again for having me. I mean, I work primarily with high school students. Not even though I'm based in New York City, I mean, I work with students from all over the US and internationally. I have students in Hong Kong, Singapore, China, UK, Panama, from all over the world. And what we do is we try to help students identify their passions, their interests, so that they really work on something that they genuinely enjoy. Because if you do something that you enjoy, you're going to work a little bit harder. And schools want to see students who have explored a passion and done something with it. And I think that's why our students are so successful with the process, because obviously the academics and everything, that's the foundation. But what's going to make you stand out when you're applying to Harvard, to Stanford, and to Yale? For all these top schools, you're going to need something other than just academics and test scores.
So it's not just the GPAs and high test scores. So what else are you looking for? I know from some research that I've been doing about your business, it's also emotional intelligence, right? And psychology. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of times when people think of the college application process, they just think, you know what, I need a 4.0 perfect GPA. I'm going to need the SAT or ACT test in addition to SAT subject tests. And that's all they think about. And that's pretty much a simpler way of thinking about it, because you're scored and essentially you're ranked among your different classmates and compared. But with extracurricular activities and the impact you can be making in your communities, there's no way to really assess or put a number or a score on it. And that's why even if you start something and you don't necessarily succeed, but you've learned so much from it and you were able to grow, that's a great story. That's something colleges will love as well. So you don't have to do something and just succeed and become number one in the extracurricular or work on a project and try to have the most impact in your community. It's not a contest. It's what do you like doing and how can you follow your own path? And that's what schools want. And that's what we try to help our students with, because a lot of these top schools, they're not necessarily looking for a well-rounded student, believe it or not. They're looking to build a well-rounded class, which means your child should really be good at one thing. And what is that one thing going to be? And how can we help you take your passion, your idea, and what we call a hook to the next level?
Mm. So Christopher, explain, I know you work with a lot of Chinese students, and education has traditionally, for thousands of years been a major part of the Chinese culture. So all these Chinese parents today, they send their children to music classes, they play violin, they play the piano, they do polo, they do golf, so they do everything. Tell Chinese parents, are they doing it correctly?
So this is actually a really funny story, because I worked with, I have a lot of students in China and in Asia, and a lot of the students, I did a seminar there once, and I was like, raise your hand if your child either plays the violin or piano. And nearly every hand went up in that room. And I said, look around, there's nothing really special. And then I asked, are you forcing your child to play the piano or the violin, or are they truly interested in? And there were about 25, 30% of parents who said their child actually enjoys it. But the rest said they're forcing their child to do it because that's what they think their child needs to do in order to get into top schools. And that's not how it works. So yeah, I think one parent said, Chris, I invested so much money in piano teachers, tutors, recitals, all this stuff. I bought this really expensive piano or violin, and you're telling me that all that was a waste? And I'm like, yeah, if your child doesn't like doing it, maybe push them a little bit. But if it's been 10 plus years and they still don't like it, let's try to figure out what they might like.
Yeah. There is something really utilitarian I find about the Chinese way of education today, particularly from Evie's family, when money is no longer the issue. And then they started to think, you just got to do all these things. One of it is because of status, peer pressure. Because if all the other rich kids play the piano, if you don't do a piano class once a week, it seems like, oh, your parents are not being responsible. And the other thing is that really they just precisely want to train the kid to have many other skills, like what you said, outside of the scores, the GPA, so that they can get into the elite schools. But is there some sort of entity you try to place into education? Perhaps, not every kid has to go to an elite school to be someone, to be useful to society. And also, that should not be the purpose for all, right?
Exactly. And I think really there are the benefits of going to a top school or an Ivy League, Stanford, MIT. Obviously, no one's going to deny that there are benefits there. I mean, I think one of the things that I got the most out of my time at Yale was, aside from the academics, was the people I met. I met so many people just hanging out with them, or during like study groups, or in the dining hall, or and so forth, or in like the gym, or in the common areas. There's so many different places that we were able to kind of meet other people and really grow. And I think that's what was most interesting and I think beneficial for me right now. But I think obviously if you want to pursue something and you want to go do, you don't necessarily have to go to an Ivy League school. I think a lot of times it's more of the parents who are fixated on the brand name of the school than the actual experience. So I have students I have parents who tell me, Chris, my kid needs to go to Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, and that's it. But the child is not interested in those schools whatsoever, wants to study art, wants to go to a school just for arts. And what's the point of getting into a top school or a name brand school, but once you get there, you're not happy, or you're miserable, or you're depressed? It's really not worth it. And if you don't graduate, I really don't see the point. So if I can help you get in, yes, that's a really hard part of the process, but you also have to get through it. And during those 4 years of college, you also need to grow as a person. You have to develop communication skills. You have to develop networking skills as well. There's so many different things you need to do in college to really grow as a person. And if you're unhappy and if your emotional state is really not where you would want it to be and it's not ideal, then I feel like you're not at the right place. All these top schools it's not for everyone. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing.
How many clients do you have at this point, Chris? And what do you advise them in terms of learning AI language, algorithms, and coding classes, and so on?
Yeah, so I started this company when I was a sophomore at Yale. And I can give you some background to kind of answer your question.
Yes.
When I was going through the college application process, I graduated from a public school in New Jersey. And my guidance counselor told me, Chris, there's no way you're going to get into a top school. Your GPA is about a 3.7, 3.8, which is not bad, but it's obviously not perfect. It's about an A-, B+ average. And he said, Chris, there's about 17 other students with better numbers than you, and you're actually the student with the lowest GPA. Don't even apply. I said, what's the worst thing? I don't get in. So I applied anyway, and I ended up being the only student to get into Yale. And now
you're 25, a Forbes 30 under 30, and the CEO of a big startup company, right?
Yeah,
this is how you do it.
Yeah. So once I got to Yale, people were like, Chris, from my high school, they were like, Chris, can you help me with my applications? So I was like, okay, sure. And I helped one student, the first student ever I helped, he got into MIT. Second student got into Stanford. And then the business just kind of grew organically 100% through word of mouth. And now it's been 5 years since my sophomore year in college, about 5 years. And we've worked close to about 800 students so far.
I wish that Shirley and I had met you like 20 or 30 years ago. Well, Shirley at least made it into Harvard.
So, Christopher, what did you teach them as a sophomore? Bear in mind, you were just a couple of years older than these kids. What were the specific skills that you implanted in them or discovered in them that made them so special in college admissions?
I think the biggest thing, I don't think it's really specific for college admissions. I think it applies for everything, not just any type of application, whether you're getting for a job or internship or any type of program, obviously for college admissions as well, but it's really building that confidence. And if someone rejects you or says no, or program says no, really getting back up and trying again. Don't spend too much time being disappointed, or don't be too afraid to fail. I think that's the thing most people are scared about. They're scared of rejection. They're scared of someone saying no. And I think it's really important to understand that not everything will go your way, but if you don't try, you'll never know. And I know that's very like cliche, but I think that's really true. Building that confidence in students and helping students know that, you know what, you can apply to all these schools. You might not necessarily have the perfect application, but if you don't try, you will never know. And
no risk, no gain. It's
exactly.
always the same, right?
Oh, I suppose, all of us as adults, we could teach young kids a couple of tips. If you fail, just get yourself together and try again. We could always do that. But not every one of us can charge $1,500 an hour. What is the value, the fundamental value? What is that thing that's so unique in what you offer that is worth so much more above the pack?
For sure. And
Not
I think
more than just telling them failing and trying.
For sure. So I think really the biggest thing is that we're near peer. We're non-parental. I think that's something that makes us so unique. Everyone on my team is full-time with us. We really think of this as a career, and we want our team members to stay with us and grow with us. I would say there's quite a few people on my team who have been with me from the very beginning. And I have one of my colleagues, Wafa, she's been with me from the very beginning, from day one. And she still works with our students every year. And I think that's really the thing. We want our mentors and we want our team members to stay with us and really grow together as a company. If we're charging standard like 50, 100 US dollars an hour, a lot of those times the people you're going to be working with are going to be part-time. They're going to be thinking of their tutoring job or college consulting job as a part-time thing or something they do after their regular job. But for us and my team, we think of this as our career. We want this to happen. We want that longevity. We want to be able to kind of stay with our students for the entire 4 years, because a lot of our students start with us in 8th or 9th grade. To switch mentors 6 times a year is not going to be beneficial. We kind of develop that mentee relationship. And I think that's one of the reasons why our students are also very successful, because we tell them to do something or to really study hard on one exam or really kind of motivate them. If there's a random person every other week, you're really not going to be able to develop that real connection. And I think the other thing is, once our students do get into college, they still come back to us and they're like, Chris, can you just look over this? Or do you want to go get dinner? Or we become friends. And I think that's really part of the process. We try to take the stress away and make this as fun as possible, because when you think of college admissions, no one really thinks of it being a great experience. We try to make it a little bit more bearable, and we kind of,
There is a lot of competition as well, Chris, and college consulting is a booming business. So what is your business model, and how much are you charging in terms of fees per hour or per term?
Yeah, there's a lot of great people in New York City that are in the same industry. They've been around for 30 plus years, some of them are similarly new like us, 5-10 years. But I would say they all do a great job. I think our approach is a little bit different. I believe we're one of the only firms that have full-time near-peer mentors for our students. We're not just helping students necessarily apply and get into top-tier schools. We're also helping them build all of these transferable skill sets. And to give you one example, we had one student who came to us, I believe her sophomore, or between her sophomore and junior, this was a few years ago. And she created this entire project to host different types of 5K runs within her community, because she was an avid runner. And with that, we helped her create sponsorships and partnerships. We helped her create a LinkedIn account, helped her partner with different types of organizations, and she got a sponsorship from one of the largest shoe manufacturers and companies in the world. And we helped her craft a cold email. She knew no one there. We knew no one there, but she was able to do that. So there's a lot of different things. And of course, she's able to use that skill set for really anything else. If she wants to find a job or an internship, she knows how to reach out to people. She knows how to create a perfect resume. We've helped her build these skill sets. So we're not just saying, you know what, these are the different things you need to do to check off to get into college. And we actually tell them, these are the different things you have to do to succeed with the college process and once you're in college and beyond. And I think that's really where our focus is with our students.
So what is your success ratio so far out of 800 candidates that you've worked with?
So students we're still working with because they start with us in 8th grade, 9th grade. I mean, they start with us
You
really
work with them over a long period of time to develop these skills.
Exactly. So
what about the ones who have completed this journey? What would be the success ratio?
Yeah, so typically when we work with students on like an unlimited basis, we meet with students about once or twice a week for about an hour each call. And that's throughout the entire year. So we really get to know the students. Like right now, if I check my phone, I saw it ring. I have like 8 or 9 messages from the beginning of this interview from students. They feel comfortable just texting me or WeChatting me and just sending me messages. I think being accessible for our students is really part of that customized and personalized attention. But I think, I mean, that last year, our success rate was 94%. This year, we saw 95.6% of our students getting one of their top choices.
Right. So we are, just to be clear to our audience, so the success ratio is defined by having a child get into a global Ivy League school or equivalent.
Yes, so a top 10, top 15 school. Obviously, not every student wants to go to these Ivy League schools. Some students might say, you know what, Chris, I want to play football at this specific school, and it's not even 20 or 25. Yeah, so then we'll help them with the recruitment process, or how they should be reaching out to the schools, or planning out when they should be taking standardized tests. So we'll be helping them kind of formulate a timeline with monthly objectives that they should be able to meet. Yeah.
So that brings to a fascinating question, which is the sequel of this one. The reason you have a high success ratio is that also because you select a student from the get-go. If there is a millionaire parent who just says, okay, Chris, you know, you have a 94% success ratio, I'm just going to hand my kid over to you. Would you accept that unconditionally?
So, I mean, we work with students, we don't hand our students we work with. It's really first come, first serve. So even if we have students, I mean, this year we had a student with a C who got early. When you think of a student in a C in a core class, you don't necessarily think of that student getting into Stanford early. I mean, I believe their acceptance rate's around 4%, you know? So you don't really think of that. If we were to do a pre-evaluation and say, you know what, you have a C, we can't work with you, we would have missed this opportunity to help this student. But that's why we don't do that. We try to help students stand out through the admissions process, regardless of what their grades are. Now, obviously, if they have low grades, C's, D's, or even F's, scattered throughout their high school career, then it's very unlikely that they will get into top school. You know, then we can be sure. But if it's just 1 or 2 here or there, we can really work with them to identify their hook. What's going to be the thing that allows them to stand out? And even though they won't necessarily have the best chance, they still have some chance. Even if it's 0.5%, they still have some chance. Why not give it a shot? The only thing you have to lose is really the time that you spent working on the application, and of course the investment with working with me and my team to kind of guide you through that process.
Core of every child, there is a genius in there, isn't it? It's all about the discovery.
Yeah, I mean, I had a student who said, you know what, I try to work with them and they said all they like doing is playing video games. And they would respond in 1-word answers to every single question. I said, this is gonna be difficult. Like, how am I gonna communicate with you if you respond with yes, no, or maybe, like for every question I ask? So I said, what do you like doing? He said, I only like playing video games. And then I said, okay, well, what video games? And I don't really know that much about it. But then once we got deep into the conversation, he realized that he actually wanted to create his own video game. But actually, it kind of evolved a little bit further than that. He ended up building an iOS a game for his iPhone. He learned.
There you go.
And that's where he went. And then he realized, you know what? He worked with his friend who was interested in designing it. So he designed the parts of the game. But he was on the back end coding it. So I think that he was able to kind of work together with his friend on this project that he truly enjoyed, instead of just sitting at home playing video games. So there's a lot of different things that we can do with our students, but it takes time. Parents might say, Chris, I hired you, I invested all this money into your service, here's the result. And I
just helping my kids to develop video games, right?
Yeah,
if I were the mom, I would have been more upset than satisfied.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's been like 5 or 6 days since you've hired me, and you're like, where's my kid's project? I'm like, it takes time. It might take 5 months. It might take 1 year. You know, it really depends. That's why it's important to start early. But of course, if you start at the later end, 11th grade or 12th grade, when you're really applying to college, at that point, it's a little bit too, if you're in 12th grade, it's a little bit too late to explore your passions specifically for the college process. So then we'll kind of really do more of the traditional scope of editing essays, helping you brainstorm essay topics, helping you figure out where you should apply an early decision or early action, updating you different types of policy changes from these schools because of COVID. For example, like Princeton removed early action, and typically when one Ivy League school makes a drastic policy change, other Ivy Leagues tend to follow. So who knows if Harvard, Yale, Brown, and all these other schools are gonna eliminate their early application round. We don't know, but there's a lot of things that we are kind of being updated on a weekly basis that we can then communicate to our students.
On May 29, President Donald Trump issued a presidential order basically restricting Chinese graduate students and researchers to come into the US to get entry. What kind of impact did Trump's policies have on your business?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're seeing a lot of students still want to go to Ivy League schools. You know, it's either the Ivy League schools here or it's Oxford or Cambridge in the UK. Those are the top schools that most of the students I work with want to go to, or McGill in Canada. And of course, I think especially with international students, they're telling me, Chris, you know what? It's either Ivy League or we're gonna wait a year or see what happens after this November. So, I mean, in terms of our business, because of virtual learning and online schooling, we've become actually busier than ever, only because there's so much uncertainty around the process. And we're here to kind of help our clients navigate this process really in the best way. So I would say in terms of tutoring, supplementary work, especially with foreign languages, we've seen a huge uptick. We have students who are learning foreign languages and they've been doing online classes since March. And this fall, if they're doing online classes again, they're gonna forget the language or they're gonna fall behind. And if they're a sophomore, sooner or later, within a year or two, they're gonna have to go back to school anyway, in person. And if they're taking, let's say, French 2 right now, and they're supposed to be taking French 4 in 2 years, you know, and they're really at a French 2 or 3 level, they're gonna be behind. So especially with foreign languages, because you need that consistency, we're seeing a lot of parents hire private tutors to kind of make sure the student stays on track.
But I have no idea, to be honest. What would be the percentage of Ivy League college graduates as a percentage of, say, global college graduates today? 0.00, do you have a ratio for that?
So I don't. I mean, but if you take a look at the Ivy League schools, right, and see how selective they are, I mean, there's thousands, tens of thousands of colleges just in the US. I mean, if you think about it from a global perspective, it's just way too many. So it's not even, I mean, it also then you have to figure out whether it's going to be undergrad or graduate school. Obviously, a lot of graduate school programs might be easier to get in than the undergrad component at that same school. So it's hard to differentiate, but then also, I really don't like categorizing just Ivy and the rest of the schools because there's a lot of other great schools and specific programs out there. So for example, if you're really interested in business, yes, there's Wharton at Penn, but then there's also NYU Stern. NYU is not an Ivy League, but it's,
my alma mater.
yeah,
Yes,
it's a
give
great
credit
school.
to it.
Yeah, and also if you think of like University of Michigan, Ross School of Business, if you think of Indiana University, so there's a lot of different great programs at schools that are not Ivy Leagues. And I think that's what we're trying to help our students and parents understand. Because if you, like I said earlier, if you go to Yale or you go to Princeton and you're not happy with what you're learning or your experience there, it's not worth it. Let's help you find the right program and the best fit for you.
I want to talk about Chinese market for a second because over the years, observing what parents have been doing, my generation, are trying to all send our children to Ivy Leagues all over the world. So, what would you, in comparison to all the other market competitors out there? There are many advisors for these students, starting from private, the international schools in China to consulting agencies. They would be advising on connections with school networks and perhaps donations and many things. And we have heard many scandals, as a matter of fact, from top U.S. universities over the years. And so yours is a clean-cut talent training program that's specifically 100% focused on the students. But how do you convince the Chinese parents, particularly if I'm a mom? And so you can just try to convince me, why would I choose you versus many other practical means that says, well, perhaps your child can get into Ivy?
So exactly. So the thing is, I mean, first of all, my team, we have zero connection with any school, any college, any admissions office. We have zero connection. And I think normally parents are like, Chris, why would you say that? That's not a good, and actually that really is one of the things that makes us so unique. We have zero connection. So what we're truly focused on is helping your child grow and develop as a person. And going to your point, with a lot of the Chinese clients I work with, a lot of their parents, a lot of the students' parents run their own businesses or run their own large companies. And sooner or later, they're gonna want their child to take over, But if your child doesn't have the skills to communicate, doesn't have the skills to really work together as a team, or really have a high EQ, like you can't do that. So really, we're helping these parents by saying, you know what? Not only will we try our best to help your child get into the best school, but regardless of navigating that process, we're gonna help your child grow as a person, develop these skill sets that can be used whenever and wherever, whether it's for academics, business, social life, whatever it might be. These are transferable skill sets that you will need in order to succeed for the rest of your life, no matter what. Working in a team, collaborating, communicating. These are all skills you will need no matter what. So that's what we focus on, because these parents, you're right, they will say, if I could donate X amount of dollars to this school legally and see if my child will have a better chance, great, go do that. We're not the company for you. You can go to a different team and they will maybe handle that. We don't do that. We focus on the student. In our agreements with our clients, in our service contracts, it says this process is student focused. Parents are not allowed on the calls that we have with our students. The first few calls, yes, the parents are allowed. But once we actually get into the groove of things, we don't necessarily recommend parents joining, because then it becomes parent focused. The parents will ask more questions than the student. And then sometimes the students won't open up to us because their parent is sitting right next to them. So
no interference policy.
Exactly. And the thing
is very hard to sell for Chinese parents, but I think you gotta get there.
But the thing is, at the end of every single session, but at the end of every session, we will send an email outlining and split into 3 parts. The first part talks about what did we go over during the call. So that's an entire detailed explanation and summary. Second part, what does the student need to do in preparation for the next call? Third, what do we need to do? Do we need to give you feedback on an essay you wrote? Do we have to help you put together a timeline? So we put that, and then if a parent has questions, they can call us separately. So that's how we work with our clients. And I think that's the best approach.
That really brings, as a passionate lover of education, it brings to a wider question, which is inclusion of education. So supposedly, when you train a student at $1,500 an hour ticket, only the rich parents can afford. And then that means then we have the rich parents that are already graduated to Ivy League school, and then they are able to pay their children, and their children have a higher chance of getting into Ivy League schools. Then we started to see what happens to all the other children who are equally talented, equally smart, equally ambitious, who just happen not to have the right parents. I think it's unfair in a way. For me, it's perhaps more important as a educated society member, I think, to impart knowledge and popularize that opportunity to young children. And so how do you, at the same time, enable that possibility of inclusion in education, particularly in need education?
Exactly. So I think really our service and a lot of college consulting in and of itself is a luxury. You know, even if you're charging 1,500 US dollars, but some of our packages go up into mid six figures per year. And if you're paying that 4 years, it's a significant investment in your child. So I would say, but the thing is, really with this process, the students that we're working with are not competing against low-income students. You know, if you're thinking about Harvard or any of these top schools, the students I'm working with, they're not competing against or taking spots away from low-income students or students who might be on financial aid. They're competing against other clients who are in the same scenario with the same type of family. You know, we're helping our clients who can afford our service compete against other clients who can theoretically afford our services as well. But they're not taking.
But do you think, Chris, that the Ivy League schools, they offer enough opportunities for students from low-income families?
Exactly. So if a lot of people don't know this, and actually when we do a lot of pro bono events throughout the year. We actually just did one last week, and we have one coming up this week in New York City in partnership with a public school here. One thing we're noticing, a lot of students think going to an Ivy League school or going to a top Ivy League school is not affordable. So they want to go to a state school because they think it's going to be cheaper. But in fact, if your family makes less than, I believe it's 60,000 or something at Yale, then you're able to get need-based financial aid. You might actually be paying $0, or they might actually be giving you a credit so that you can buy textbooks, laptops, school supplies, things like that. So you actually might be paying nothing to go to Yale compared to paying maybe $10,000 to go to a state school. So a lot of times students don't understand that, and because they just don't know. They think of Yale, they think of Harvard, and they think, oh, it's going to be a $250,000 education across 4 years. But in reality, if your parents make less than a certain amount of money, then you might be able to receive need-based financial aid. But kind of going back to Shirley's point in terms of the inequalities in education, that really stems from really where you live. You know, the clients that I work with, yes, they might be able to afford our types of service and really anything that they might need or want. But again, they're not competing against other students. The type of high school you go to, you know, a lot of students I work with do go to private school. I do have about 40% of my students going to really great public schools, but their taxes in those areas are extremely high, you know, because you have a great public school system. So you're also weeding out low-income students from even going to those types of great public schools as well. So there's a lot of different things that stem and that really factor into this process in terms of inequalities in education. So we're not here to really widen the opportunity gap here. We're focused on helping our clients that we're working with compete successfully against other students who are in that same situation. Yeah.
And it's truly incredible. But at the same time, we have to also admit that the elite schools are not made for everyone. They are not absolutely, you know, giving equal opportunities to all. If you have a piece of advice, what would it be to bring more inclusion into the education system?
So I really think the first thing is honestly to remove the testing requirements. I think that's a huge barrier for low-income students. I also, and everyone really knows this, they're not a great indicator of how smart you are whatsoever. You know, it's a lot of it is about strategy. A lot of it is about whether or not you have the time to study for the exam, or if you can hire a tutor who can come to your house or work with you 3-4 times a week. And tutoring is a significant investment as well. But once you take the test, you forget about it and then you move on. You know, the types of questions, the types of vocabulary words that you have to learn for the SAT, I've never heard, I mean, maybe like 5% of the words I hear, but I don't really hear anyone using those words, you know, on the SAT vocab words, you know? So these tests are really outdated. I think the first step is going to be remove these exams, because people think, oh, well, I scored less than a 1400, 700 on each section. I'm not even qualified to go to a top school. Then they're not even gonna try. The thing is, we need to help students at least try, you know? But the thing is, these tests are getting in the way. Also, taking the test, there's a fee. You know, if you're low income, you do get waivers, so you don't have to pay for the exam. But then the thing is, there are limits on how many times you can take the exam. If you're wealthy and you can afford paying $50, $60 for the exam, you can take it as many times as you want, to be honest. But the thing is also the tutoring process. If you want to tutor, study self-study, you have to go buy basic prep books at like Barnes and Nobles or Amazon. And by the time, they're expensive too. There's hundreds of books out there that you have to buy. So it's not a fair process. I think the first thing is to remove these exams. And I think it's to really focus on where the student has grown, given the environmental context of the student and the school, see how much they've worked, talk about their impact in their community, focus on extracurriculars, focus on the college essay, personal statement. I think that's really where the focus should be shifted to. Yes, your GPA matters and so forth, but these tests, it's more of a strategy. It's like how well have you prepared for these exams, or what kind of test taking strategies have you learned from your private tutor?
In a short time span, if you want to talk to the Chinese parents who aspire to send their children to Ivy Leagues, what would you say to them?
So I would say the first thing is, don't force your child to do something that he or she might not want to do. Yes, pushing your child a little bit, it might be necessary, but then if for like 6 months or 1 year, they feel like this is not the thing for them, they're not interested, and you're forcing them just because you feel like this is the right thing for them to do, I would take a step back and let this child identify what he or she might be interested in, or what passion or what interest. If they're interested in arts, let them paint, buy them canvases if you can, or pottery wheels, whatever it might be. Let's figure that out. Don't assume that your child needs to be doing X, Y, Z in order to get into college. Right. Yes, maybe that might have worked 20 years ago, but now students are becoming more and more entrepreneurial. I have students who have filed patents for their inventions, and they came to me with all these ideas. I have students who came to me with projects for community impact, like nonprofit organizations that they've started, saying, Chris, I want to be able to grow this. Can you help me? Or they're like, Chris, I was just on CNN talking about my project. I want to be able to really capitalize on all this attention that I'm getting and really have a bigger impact. So there's a lot of solutions that we're able to bring to the table to kind of work together with our students. And of course, the journey is to help the students grow. The final project is not the final goal. Maybe for the parents is to get into top school, but for the child is to discover what they're interested in.
Absolutely. I think the trick for Chinese parents is perhaps today to do less.
Exactly. Give your child the opportunity to explore what they might be interested in. Of course, showing and making sure that your child doesn't give up when things gets hard. I mean, I think that's really important as well. But there's a fine limit to pushing your child so that they don't give up, and pushing your child because you feel like that's what they need to do.
You're the advisor for Lady Gaga. What did you do there?
Yeah, so I was on her board for her nonprofit for 2 years when I was in college. So we helped figure out different ways to help bring mental health into the spotlight. We did a lot of different types of activations following some of her tours. So there was a lot of great work that she was able to do with her foundation that I helped advocate for throughout the country. with her team. So it was a great experience that I was able to do.
Chris, what are some of your own skills and passions that you want to develop for your own future? We know that the painting in the back, you just told us before going on air, was painted by you, so you're definitely an artist as well. Do you want to, go into the arts business at some point later in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I love art. I think a lot of the, it's also, I got into art a little bit because of my clients, and my clients in China, actually. A few of them were talking to me about different pieces. And when I would go to China, for some clients, they would invite me over and they would be showing me all of these pieces, or they might have their own private collection or museum that they would take me to. So I spent a lot of time, obviously I can't afford it.
You're only 25 years old.
Yeah, I'm 25. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I could do this. And so I felt like, like a lot of my friends and a lot of people say, you know what? How is that art? How is that 30 million US dollars? It's just like scribbles. And I was like, you know what? If that person can do it, why can't I do it?
It's a beautiful scribble that you have in your living room there, Chris.
So Christopher Rim, Command Education, who is a worldwide ED educator to specialize in bringing talented children into global Ivy League schools and doing fantastic work in China. And please tune into, of course, check out Command Education, Christopher Rim, all across the global interview channels, and tune into Hey China on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Weibo, Bilibili, almost anywhere you want to check that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.